We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
23.
Hey, what is up, you guys? This is Steffi, aka In My Humble Opinion, and welcome back to another IMHO Film Club movie review. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the latest Netflix release that actually premiered in Sundance back in 2018, and that movie is entitled Monster. So, Monster stars Kelvin Harrison Jr., Jennifer Hudson, Jeffrey Wright, Jarrell Jerome, Jennifer Eel, A$AP Rocky, Nas, Tim Blake Nelson, and John David Washington. This movie was directed by Anthony Mandler, written by Rada Blank, Colin C. Wiley, and Janice Schaefer, based on the 1999 novel Monster by Walter Dean Myers. So, Monster tells the story of Steve Harmon, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr., who is a 17-year-old honor student whose whole world comes crashing down around him when he is charged with felony murder. The film follows his dramatic journey from a smart, likable film student from Harlem attending an elite high school through a complex legal battle that could leave him spending the rest of his life in jail. So, as in all my movie reviews here on this channel, I'm going to be talking about my personal pros and cons of the movie, and then at the very end, I'm going to give my overall rating and review. But first, before we really get into this review, I just want to say thank you so much to my friends over at Netflix for sending me an advanced screener of this movie. It really means a lot to me. And for those of you guys who are wondering, Monster is available to stream now on Netflix. And with that, let's get into our review. Alright, so let's talk about some of the pros. So the first pro that I have to this movie is its subject matter. A lot of people might say that this story is timely, but unfortunately, it's not that this story is timely. It's just that stories like this are reoccurring. Monster ultimately shows how negative narratives that are perpetuated about the Black community play into the legal system. And so the way that this movie functions is it's cutting back and forth between jail scenes where we see Steve trying to adjust his life behind bars, various courtroom scenes where we see the prosecution trying to portray this really unjust narrative about Steve and this other young man who's at trial. And at one point, the prosecutor literally points at Steve and calls him a monster in front of the entire jury and courtroom, and you're just like, ugh. So you're cutting from those scenes as well as to Steve's life before the incident. And in those moments, you see how he was really just a regular young kid. And you can't help but think about how stuff like this still happens to this day, whether it's a negative narrative playing out in the courtroom or it's a negative narrative that is being put out by mainstream media. My second pro to this movie is Kelvin Harrison Jr. So I, across the board, really enjoyed a lot of the performances. For me, personally, I was really taken by the young cast. It is interesting to think about how this movie premiered in Sundance back in 2018, and when you think about how some of the young actors' careers have since played out, like Jarrell Jerome, who was in When They See Us in 2019, or John David Washington, who's been in so many things since 2018. Clearly, this movie was filled with a talented cast that maybe at the time they didn't realize how many stars that they had in their movie. But for me, the standout was our lead, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr. I was really impressed with this guy. He's really in most of the scenes in this movie, and I think this movie shows his range, again, because you are cutting back and forth between his life before the incident. So in those scenes, you see this very charismatic, carefree guy to his life after the incident, in trial, in jail, and you just see how scared and worried and uncertain he is about his future. I looked up his career since Monster, and apparently Kelvin Harrison Jr. played Fred Hampton in Trial of the Chicago 7 that was recently nominated for a lot of Oscars. So I'm really rooting for this guy, and I hope to see him in more things, so definitely keep your eye out on him. Alright, and my third pro to this movie is its point of view. So because our lead, Steve, is a film student, the film is essentially set up in the way that a film script is. The way Steve describes scenes, he will introduce them in the way that a film script does. So he'll say like interior, courtroom. From a creative standpoint, I thought that was a really unique way into this kind of story. I thought it was appropriate because it plays into his character. And secondly, it plays into a major theme of this movie, which is the importance of narrative and how we frame narratives and who gets to tell the stories. Prosecution, he frames Steve as a monster, and to Steve, he is trying to contend with his own identity. I also have to say too, I personally never read the book, but I was doing research online, and apparently a lot of people have read this book in school, and a lot of people were also saying too the reason why they loved the book so much was because of the way it was told in film script format. Alright, so now let's talk about some of the cons. So my first con for me is I feel like they should have leaned more into the unique point of view of Steve being a film student. Like I just said, it's an interesting way into this kind of story, and it's clearly what made the source material so unique. So for me personally, I wish they would have done more with that idea. While watching this movie, I couldn't help but think about Mank. If you guys watched Mank, the way that they introduce scenes, because the main character in Mank is a screenwriter, they will show the slug line being typed out on screen. So I just wish this movie played up more of Steve's unique point of view as a film student, and I also wish they were more consistent with that narrative device as well, because it's very predominant in the beginning of the movie, but then it kind of starts to go away towards the middle and the end. My second con of this movie is that I personally felt that Jeffrey Wright and Jennifer Hudson were a bit underutilized. So I understand that this movie isn't about the parents, it's about the kid and it's from his POV, but when you have Jeffrey Wright and Jennifer Hudson in your cast, you should utilize them, and I feel like they weren't used as much as they could have been. I would have loved to have had maybe like 1 or 2 additional scenes of just the parents interacting with each other, trying to grapple with what is happening to their son together, but this movie didn't really show enough of them, at least to me. Alright, so my overall rating and review of Monster. Well, Monster is another movie that points and exposes the flaws in the American justice system, especially when you are young and black in America. But at its core, it's also a movie about the importance of a narrative and who gets to frame that narrative. I wish Monster leaned more heavily into this idea to make it stand out from the rest, because when all was said and done, despite its strong performances, this movie was just fine and didn't really stand out. And for that reason, I'm giving Monster a solid B. Alright, well that's about it for this movie review. If you liked it, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and please turn on that notification button down below so you know when a new video from me comes out. And comment down below, are you planning on seeing Monster? Have you already seen it? I know it just came out yesterday, but let me know, have you seen the movie? And let me know your thoughts. Or, you know, maybe you're one of the lucky few who were able to watch it in Sundance back in 2018. Let me know your thoughts about Monster, and that's pretty much it. Again, I just want to say thank you so much to Netflix for sending me an advanced screener of this movie. I really, really appreciate it, and I am so happy that Netflix and other networks and movie studios are being way more open to us reviewers here on YouTube that are trying to do their thing. Thank you so much to Netflix, and if you are interested in watching Monster, it is now streaming on Netflix, so you can watch it right now. But yeah, that's pretty much it. As always, everything I said was just my own personal thoughts and all in my humble opinion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!